Hello everyone. I am Six Path Weeb, and I welcome you to a space where imagination meets storytelling. Here, we explore alternate narratives and reimagine iconic characters beyond the boundaries of their original worlds. Today's feature centers on an intriguing concept, Super Saiyan 4 Naruko, a fusion of universes that challenges convention and expands the limits of fan creativity. Through this narrative, we delve into power, identity, and the possibilities that emerge when two legendary legacies intersect. Disclaimer: the content presented on this channel is intended solely for entertainment and discussion. I do not claim ownership of any anime footage used. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further delay, let us begin. A blonde-haired girl of 10 sat quietly in a small, worn apartment room. Her blue eyes were narrowed in deep thought as she looked down at the curious mark on her stomach. Naruko had discovered it years ago while bathing in a spring, and ever since then, she had been determined to understand it. At first, it had simply been a mystery, strange lines and patterns that didn't make sense. But 2 days ago, everything changed. A kind, brown-haired girl named Tenten had shown Naruko a special scroll she used to store her tools. The markings on that scroll looked familiar, and suddenly Naruko understood, what she had on her stomach was a seal. That discovery only made her more curious. If it was a seal, then it must have a purpose. Naruko had spent the past 2 days studying every scroll and book about sealing techniques that she could find. She read carefully, tracing the shapes and symbols with her fingers, practicing them over and over. To her surprise, the knowledge seemed to come naturally. Even the more complicated designs made sense to her, as if she had always known them. And yet, the seal on her stomach remained different. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't fully understand it. Naruko sighed softly, about to pull her shirt back down, when a memory popped into her mind. One of the girls in her class had once talked about meditation, how it helped her focus and connect with her family's special skills. She had said that everyone had a mindscape, a place inside themselves where thoughts and feelings could be explored. Naruko tilted her head thoughtfully. If the seal is part of me, she murmured, maybe I can find answers inside. A small, hopeful smile appeared on her face. She crossed her legs on the floor, closed her eyes, and rested her hands gently on her knees. Slowly, she began to breathe in and out, letting the noise of the outside world fade away. Her thoughts, once busy and restless, began to settle like leaves drifting onto calm water. In the quiet stillness, Naruko felt something new, a gentle awareness, like standing at the edge of a hidden doorway. She didn't feel afraid. Instead, she felt curious. With steady determination, Naruko took a deep breath and allowed herself to drift further inward, ready to discover what secrets her own heart might hold. Before long, Naruko found herself in a strange place that felt like it existed inside her own thoughts. She looked around with a small frown. It wasn't very pretty, dim, quiet, and a little messy, but she was curious rather than afraid. She stood up and began to explore. As she walked, she noticed 2 sets of glowing pipes. One shimmered with a soft blue light, calm and gentle. The other glowed a deep red, warm and powerful. Naruko tilted her head, wondering what they meant. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to follow the red glow. Soon, she reached a wide, open space. In the center stood a tall gate made of golden bars that stretched all the way to the ceiling. It looked important, almost magical. Naruko stepped closer, peering inside. At first, she couldn't see anything clearly. But as her eyes adjusted, she noticed a large shape resting quietly behind the bars. Then, slowly, 2 great eyes opened, bright and watchful. Naruko froze for a moment, surprised. But instead of fear, she felt something unexpected. A gentle presence, like someone who had been waiting a long time. A deep but calm voice spoke, "So, you've finally come to visit." Naruko blinked and placed a hand over her heart. "Who are you?" she asked softly. The shape shifted, and soon a graceful woman with long red hair appeared behind the gate. Her eyes were warm, and her expression held both wisdom and kindness. "I am Akane," she said. "And I've been with you for a very long time." Naruko listened carefully. As she thought about everything, her life, her feelings, the way people treated her, things slowly began to make sense. But instead of feeling hurt, she simply felt a quiet determination growing inside her. "I don't really understand everything yet," Naruko admitted, "but I want to." Akane smiled gently. "That's a wonderful place to start." Just then, a soft light filled the space. It wasn't overwhelming, it felt peaceful, like moonlight. From that glow, another figure appeared. She was tall and elegant, dressed in flowing robes, with bright golden eyes that sparkled with kindness. She looked at Naruko with a warm smile. "Hello, little one." Naruko blinked in awe. "Who are you?" "I am Kira," the woman replied gently. "And I've come because you deserve something very special." Naruko stepped closer, her curiosity shining. "Something special?" Kira knelt down so they were eye level. "Yes. A new beginning. A chance to grow, to be strong, and to never feel alone again." Naruko's eyes widened slightly. "Does that mean I'll have someone with me?" Kira nodded. "You always have. But now, you'll truly feel it." Akane stepped forward, her expression peaceful. "I trust you with her," she said to Kira. "She has a bright future ahead." Kira placed a gentle hand on Naruko's shoulder. "From this moment on, you are part of my family. You are Naruko Shinjin." Naruko felt a warm light surround her, soft and comforting. It wasn't scary, it felt like being wrapped in a hug. She closed her eyes, smiling. When she opened them again, she felt different, not just stronger, but calmer, like she finally belonged somewhere. Kira leaned forward and softly touched Naruko's forehead. "You are never alone. You are loved, you are strong, and you will grow into someone wonderful." Naruko's eyes shone brightly. "I'll do my best," she said. "I want to make you proud." Kira smiled warmly. "You already do." The glowing space around them began to change, transforming into a peaceful valley under a gentle night sky. Everything felt calm and full of possibility. Naruko looked around, then clenched her small fists with determination. "I'm Naruko Shinjin," she said softly. "And I'll keep moving forward." With that, the world faded gently, and Naruko began to awaken, carrying with her a new sense of hope, strength, and belonging. Naruko woke up outside with a gentle stretch, smiling as she felt a soft, new tail sway behind her. It moved like a ribbon in the breeze, and she couldn't help but giggle at how light and lively it felt. Curious and excited, she stood up and walked into her old bathroom. When she looked in the mirror, her eyes grew wide with wonder. Her hair was no longer short and spiky. It now fell to her shoulders in smooth, silky strands, dark and shining like her tail. The little whisker marks that had once decorated her cheeks were gone, leaving her face clear and bright. She tilted her head and noticed something else, two small horns resting neatly on her forehead. Naruko smiled warmly. The horns reminded her of her new mother, and that thought filled her with comfort. Even though her eyes weren't golden like her mother's, she felt happy just the same. She gave her reflection one last cheerful nod before turning away. Remembering what she had been told, Naruko shook her head lightly and stepped out of the bathroom. She gathered the scrolls and books she had collected earlier, holding them carefully. She liked learning about seals and symbols, and she could already imagine all the interesting things she might discover. After slipping on a soft black shirt, she glanced at her old orange and blue jacket. It looked bright and cheerful, but it didn't feel quite right anymore. With a small shrug, she decided to leave it behind. She preferred something simpler now. Stepping outside, Naruko began walking toward the training grounds. As she passed each one, she counted quietly until she reached Training Ground 40. She peeked inside and smiled at the peaceful scene, a flowing river and calm greenery. She continued to Training Ground 41 and found it just as lovely. It was quiet and tucked away, with a small pond that seemed to connect to the river nearby. Naruko imagined sitting there someday, enjoying the gentle sounds of water. At Training Ground 42, she paused and noticed a group of animals gathered in the distance. She watched them briefly, then moved on, remembering the place in case she wanted to visit again. Finally, she arrived at Training Ground 43. A sturdy brick fence surrounded it, with a tall iron gate standing at the entrance. The gate had elegant symbols carved into it, glowing softly in the sunlight. Curious, Naruko reached out and placed her hand on it. The gate gave a gentle pulse, as if recognizing her touch, and slowly opened. Naruko stepped inside and gasped in delight. Before her stood a beautiful home, large and welcoming, like a storybook castle with a modern charm. Decorative statues stood proudly at the front, and everything seemed to shimmer with quiet magic. "This is mine?" she whispered in awe. She walked inside, her footsteps echoing softly as she explored. Every room held something new and interesting. After a while, she chose a bedroom to call her own. It was spacious and bright, with a cozy bed and a connected bathroom that had a wide shower and a large, relaxing tub. Feeling pleased, Naruko unpacked her scrolls and books neatly. Then she made her way to the kitchen. When she opened the refrigerator, her eyes lit up. It was filled with all kinds of fresh food. The freezer held neatly stored ingredients, and the cabinets were stocked with cooking tools. With a happy hum, she prepared a simple meal of fried fish and crispy potatoes. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm and satisfying. After eating, Naruko returned to her room. She climbed into bed, pulling the covers up snugly around her shoulders. With a soft sigh, she turned off the light. Before long, she was fast asleep, her dreams peaceful and bright. Far away, back at her old apartment, a few village guards stood quietly, looking around the empty space. One of them picked up the jacket Naruko had left behind. "There's no sign of her," one said gently. Iruka Umino gave a thoughtful nod. "I'll wait for her at the academy," he replied. "I'm sure she'll come when she's ready." And somewhere beyond the village, Naruko slept soundly, ready to begin a brand new chapter when she awoke. She then went back to the academy. The Onbu, a woman with long, wavy purple hair, said gently, "You three report back to Hokage-sama. I'll continue to look for clues about where she might be." The other three Onbu nodded and vanished in a soft swirl of leaves. Once they were gone, the woman stood and began searching the apartment for any sign of Naruko besides her jacket. After quite some time, she still hadn't found anything. With a quiet sigh, she looked at the jacket in her hands. After making sure no one was nearby, she removed her mask and held the jacket close, her expression soft with concern. "I hope you're safe, Naruko," she whispered. "Please come back soon." Then, composing herself, she placed her mask back on and disappeared once more in a gentle rustle of leaves. That night, Naruko woke up with a bright yawn, feeling refreshed and full of energy. She hopped out of bed and wondered what she should do next. She remembered how she sometimes struggled with her studies and how her classmates would tease her. Determined to improve, she made her way to her library. Inside, she picked up the first book she could find. It was titled The Different Types of Energies and How to Use Them, Book 1 for Beginners. Sitting in a cozy chair, she began to read. One book led to another, and before long she had read through many of them, learning about energy, cooking, general knowledge, and even how to create techniques. After a while, she closed her book with a satisfied smile. "All right," she said, stretching her arms, "I've trained my mind enough for today. Now it's time to train my body." She hopped down from her chair and headed outside to a special training room. At the entrance, she adjusted the settings carefully, remembering what she had read. "If I trained my brain for 7 hours, I should train my body just as much," she said thoughtfully. After setting everything just right, the door opened, and she stepped inside. The moment the door closed behind her, Naruko clapped her hands together with excitement. "Let's try that technique I read about." She formed a hand sign and called out, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." A puff of smoke filled the room, and when it cleared, Naruko blinked in amazement. There were so many copies of her standing all around. She laughed happily. "Wow, I did it." Turning to her clones, she said, "Let's work together. Each group can focus on something different, and we'll all get stronger." The clones nodded enthusiastically, and soon the room was filled with Naruko's training in different ways, some studying energy, others practicing movement, and the original Naruko working hard on exercises to build her strength. She wanted to grow stronger, not to outshine others, but to become the best version of herself, someone who could face any challenge with confidence and kindness. After many days of focused effort, Naruko returned home feeling proud. The next morning, she woke up early, ready to go back to the academy. Looking in the mirror, she smiled. She looked healthier, stronger, and more confident. After getting ready for the day, she opened her closet and looked at her clothes. There were so many options, but today she wanted something special. She chose an outfit that made her feel brave and unique, adding a pair of special shades that helped her observe the world more clearly. With everything ready, Naruko stepped outside her home for the first time in days. The fresh air felt wonderful, and her tail swayed gently behind her as she walked. Holding a book about legendary warriors, she smiled to herself. "One day, I'll become someone truly amazing," she said softly. "Not just strong, but kind and wise too." With that hopeful thought in her heart, Naruko continued her walk to the academy, ready for a brand new day. At the academy in classroom 300, Iruka had just walked in and sighed as, once again, the fan club of Sasuke Uchiha was having a lively argument over who got to sit beside the quiet boy. Iruka scanned the room and grew concerned because Naruko still hadn't returned to class yet. That was unusual, and he hoped everything was all right. Shaking his head, he was about to call for order when the classroom door slid open. All eyes turned. A girl stepped in, bright, golden hair framing her face, and unmistakable blue eyes shining with curiosity. She looked familiar, yet different, as if a new story had just begun around her. Iruka blinked, then asked gently, "Excuse me, but are you lost?" Naruko lowered the book she had been holding and smiled, her expression warm and slightly sheepish. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "I had quite a morning." The room fell silent, every student listening. "You see," she began, scratching the back of her head, "on my way here, I met a squirrel. But it wasn't really a squirrel, it was a princess under a spell. She asked for help, because her kingdom was in trouble." A few students leaned forward, completely captivated. "So I followed her," Naruko continued, her voice light and imaginative. "The kingdom was hidden beyond a shimmering forest, and there I found a great dragon with many heads. It wasn't mean, though, it was confused and under a spell. So instead of fighting it, I used a clever trick with a mirror to reflect the spell back. The dragon calmed down, the spell broke, and everything turned peaceful again." The girls in the class sighed dreamily, while some of the boys exchanged amused glances. "The princess was so happy," Naruko added, "she thanked me and gave me a wonderful horse named Quicksilver. I rode back as fast as I could, but I still ended up late." Iruka folded his arms, though a small smile tugged at his lips. "Naruko, where have you really been for the past week?" Naruko paused, then spoke more softly this time. "Well, I was at home," she said. "And I met someone unexpected, a mysterious woman who felt lost and scared. She told me she had been misunderstood for a long time, and I didn't think that was fair. So I stayed with her and listened." The classroom grew quiet again, but in a thoughtful way. "Then," Naruko continued, "another person appeared, someone important, who seemed to know more about me than I did. It was confusing at first, but in the end, everything turned out all right. I found a new place to stay, and I think I understand myself a little better now." Iruka studied her for a moment. Her tone was calm, her eyes steady. "Well," he said at last, "I'm glad you're safe. That's what matters." Naruko nodded and walked to her seat beside Shino, sitting down with a content expression. Iruka cleared his throat and turned back to the class. "All right, everyone. Let's begin." As the lesson started, a gentle sense of wonder lingered in the room, because with Naruko there, every ordinary day seemed to carry the promise of a story waiting to be told. An hour later, the class gathered outside for sparring practice. Iruka stood at the front with his assistant, Mizuki, watching over everyone. The students buzzed with excitement as Iruka announced, "Today we'll try something special, you may choose your own partners." Whispers filled the air. Naruko, however, stayed calm. She had a feeling she might be challenged soon. Sure enough, when Iruka asked who would go first, Sasuke stepped forward and said, "I'll go first. I choose Naruko." Naruko stood up, stretching lightly. "All right," she replied, her voice steady. "Let's have a fair match." The two stepped into the practice ring. Mizuki raised his hand. "Begin." Sasuke moved quickly, determined to impress everyone watching. Naruko watched carefully, her focus sharp but her expression relaxed. At the last moment, she stepped lightly to the side, avoiding his approach with surprising ease. The movement was so smooth that several students blinked in confusion, unsure how she had done it. Sasuke paused, surprised, then tried again with even more effort. Naruko adjusted her stance, moving with gentle precision. Instead of striking hard, she redirected his momentum, guiding him safely off balance. Sasuke stumbled slightly but quickly regained his footing. The class watched in awe. Naruko wasn't trying to overpower him, she was demonstrating control. After a few more exchanges, Sasuke slowed down, breathing heavily. Naruko lowered her hands and gave a small smile. "You're strong," she said kindly. "But don't rush. Take your time, and you'll improve even more." Iruka nodded approvingly. "That's enough. Naruko wins this round." The students murmured, impressed not just by her skill, but by her attitude. After school, Naruko walked through the village with a small book in her hands, reading as she made her way to her favorite ramen stand. The warm, familiar scent greeted her as she arrived. "Welcome back," Tucci called cheerfully. Naruko smiled and sat down. "Thank you. One bowl, please." Ayame watched in amazement as Naruko read her book while eating, somehow managing both with ease. Just then, a quiet presence appeared nearby. A masked messenger spoke politely, "The Hokage would like to see you." Naruko closed her book and stood. "All right," she said calmly. At the Hokage's office, several village leaders had gathered. The room felt serious, but Naruko remained composed. The Hokage spoke gently, Naruko, we've heard about your match today. You showed great skill and kindness. Naruko tilted her head slightly. I just did what felt right. Another elder asked, where did you learn such control? Naruko thought for a moment. From paying attention. And from wanting to grow stronger in a good way. The room grew quiet, then the Hokage smiled warmly. That is exactly what a ninja should strive for. After the meeting, Naruko returned home. The evening light filtered softly through the windows. As she stepped inside, she felt a comforting presence. Her mother sat nearby, smiling gently. Welcome back, she said. Naruko relaxed immediately and sat beside her. Today was busy, she admitted. Her mother brushed a strand of hair from Naruko's face. You handled it well. Naruko leaned back, her eyes growing heavy. I think I'll rest for a bit. Of course, her mother replied softly. Naruko closed her eyes, feeling safe and peaceful. Surrounded by warmth and quiet understanding, she drifted into a gentle sleep, ready to dream of brighter days ahead. 2 years had flown by, and Naruko was now 12 years old. Her raven black hair shone brightly, a wonderful reminder of her unique Saiyan heritage. She was generally quiet and polite with the villagers, though she held a special place in her heart for her good friends Ayame and Tucci. The village leaders had recently shared the truth about Naruko. They explained how brave she had been in helping to calm the great nine-tailed fox, which was why she had taken a break from the academy. They also announced that she was the daughter of the beloved Minato and the heir to the Namikaze family. Because of this, many people tried very hard to win her favor and make up for ignoring her in the past. Naruko gently brushed off the sudden attention, simply happy and proud of her Shinjin roots. She did have a bit of a rivalry with her classmate, Sasuke. He had once demanded to join her family clan, but Naruko had firmly and politely set her boundaries. Since then, she always made sure to outshine him in their friendly training exercises, proving that hard work and dedication were the real secrets to success. One afternoon, the famous traveler Jiraiya came to visit. He hoped to convince her that her destiny was to be the village's ultimate hero. Naruko respectfully disagreed, explaining that her true motivation was simply to protect the people she cared about most, like Ayame and Tucci. When Jiraiya challenged her to a playful sparring match to test her resolve, Naruko amazed him with her speed and cleverness, easily winning the friendly contest and leaving the older ninja quite speechless. Now, the morning sun was rising on her final day at the academy. It was the day of the Jinan exams, and Naruko felt perfectly prepared. She had blossomed from a playful prankster into the top student of her class. While she did not care much for fancy titles like Rookie of the Year, she loved learning and always strove to do her absolute best. Sliding on her favorite dark tunic and a pair of comfortable wristbands, she was ready for the day. Walking toward her door, she gave a cheerful whistle. In bounded her 12th birthday present from her cousin Michelle, a magnificent black panther named Ashley. Ashley had started out as a tiny, playful kitten, but after 2 years of loving care, she had grown into a majestic and loyal companion. Come on, Ashley, Naruko said with a bright smile. Today is the big day. Ashley gave a happy nod, allowing Naruko to fasten a beautifully crafted, lightweight armor over her dark fur. It was designed to keep the panther safe, though Ashley was already incredibly strong and swift from practicing alongside Naruko in their magical training room. Once her furry friend was ready, Naruko carefully placed her beautifully crafted new sword across her back. It was a thoughtful gift from her cousin Gabriella, who had spent a long time tracking it down. It was said to be a legendary blade named Excalibur, known as the Sword of Kings. By practicing tirelessly with her magical shadow clones, Naruko had gained a deep understanding of how to wield it gracefully and responsibly. She also practiced her focus with her cousin Rachel, building a mind so strong and clear that no distraction could ever pull her away from her goals. If anyone tried to confuse her, she could easily navigate any mental puzzle they threw her way. Finally, she had a neat magical mark on her right hand, a drawing of a watchful eye. It was a special connection to a friendly guardian spirit named Argus, who helped protect her from tricky illusions and always kept her vision perfectly clear. Stepping out into the morning light, Naruko felt ready for whatever wonderful adventures awaited her. Stepping out of her home, Naruko walked proudly with her magnificent winged panther friend, Ashley. The villagers watched her with eyes full of wonder and admiration. She was a kind and bright girl, always bringing a spark of joy to the neighborhood. Come on, Ashley, let's take to the skies. Naruko cheered. Hearing this, Ashley gave a happy, gentle purr, leapt gracefully into the air, and began to float lazily toward the Ninja Academy. Naruko giggled. You playful kitty, you were just waiting for me to say that, she said. She then floated up gently, soaring through the clouds right behind her best animal friend. At the academy, Teacher Iruka looked warmly at his classroom. He saw so much wonderful potential in his students. Sasuke was very focused on his studies, as long as he remembered to work as a team. Ino was exceptionally bright and shared the top spot in class with Naruko. Shikamaru was a bit sleepy but incredibly clever. Kiba had lots of enthusiastic energy, and Kuji was a loyal and wonderful friend. Shino was quiet but very smart, Hinata was sweet and learning to be brave, and Sakura was studying hard to be her very best. Iruka glanced at the clock, knowing his star pupil would arrive any second. The door opened, and in walked the cheerful Naruko Shinjin, along with Ashley. The villagers often called her Princess Shinjin because of her royal heritage from the faraway Stars clan. Naruko was at the top of her class and always encouraged everyone to do their best. She was fantastic at every game and academic challenge, and she always played fair. Iruka remembered the last friendly obstacle course race between Naruko and Sasuke. Naruko had used her special, fluffy tail to swing gracefully from the branches, winning the race with a brilliant smile. She often used her tail to do helpful things, like gently catching a falling stack of books for a classmate or helping the local bakers carry their heavy flour sacks. She was fiercely protective of her friends but always used her talents for good. Iruka smiled as Naruko took her seat next to Ino. He clapped his hands and said, "All right class, today is the day of our big graduation puzzle. Remember to try your best, have fun, and you will do great." He nodded to his helper, Mizuki, and the joyful testing began. Later, Naruko strolled happily down the sunny street, a shiny new graduation headband tied neatly around her arm. She had easily solved the clever riddles Mizuki had given them. After the test, Naruko let Ashley fly off to explore the meadows and find some tasty wild berries. Naruko often wondered how Ashley could eat so much, considering Naruko herself was just a light eater. She had read that the people of her magical clan usually had huge appetites. However, her mother had gently explained that because Naruko had so much bright star energy flowing through her, she just did not need to eat as much right now. Her mother had also told her that her appetite might grow when she learned a new, glowing transformation. Naruko was excited to learn, though she remembered a time she had looked at the full moon and accidentally turned into a giant, bouncy, fluffy creature. She had leapt around the entire garden, accidentally knocking over a birdbath before learning how to calm down and turn back. She was still practicing how to control all that happy energy so she would not be so clumsy. Stopping in front of her favorite noodle stand, Naruko smiled brightly. Walking inside, she hopped onto a stool and waited for her friend Ayame to say hello. Almost instantly, Ayame appeared with a warm, welcoming smile. "What can I make for you today, Naruko?" she asked sweetly. Naruko giggled. "I would love a small bowl of your yummy vegetable noodles, please." Then, feeling a familiar, happy energy zooming close by, she added, "And a big plate of fresh fish for Ashley." Ayame blinked, unsure what Naruko meant, until Ashley patted in, looking a little tired and disappointed. Realizing what Naruko had been hinting at, Ayame giggled softly and said, "Coming right up, Naruko-chan." Naruko turned to Ashley with a curious smile. "So, no luck catching the golden rabbit today?" Ashley shook her head and gave a long yawn, showing off her impressive teeth before settling down. Naruko laughed warmly. "Am I supposed to be scared of that?" Ashley gave a playful snort and looked away with a flick of her tail. Naruko crossed her arms with a grin. "Silly panther. I'm Naruko, and I'm not afraid of anything." Just then, Ayame returned carrying a thick slice of steak. She set it gently in front of Ashley and gave her a kind pat. "Don't worry, girl. You'll catch that clever rabbit next time." Ashley purred happily and began to eat. Naruko watched, her laughter softening into a fond smile. "She's right, Ashley. You'll get it someday. For now, enjoy your meal." Ashley gave another contented snort as she continued eating, clearly pleased. A few hours later, under a sky full of twinkling stars, Naruko sat quietly in a tree at the edge of a peaceful clearing. Ashley rested beside her, her tail swaying lazily. Naruko tilted her head as she listened to a conversation nearby between Sasuke and Mizuki. They seemed to be talking about an important scroll, though the details sounded confusing. Ashley let out a soft, amused huff, as if she found the situation rather silly. Naruko smiled faintly and whispered, "What do you think, girl?" Ashley simply licked her lips and blinked at her. Naruko chuckled. "You really do think about food all the time." Deciding it was time to step in, Naruko hopped down lightly from the tree, her landing gentle but enough to catch everyone's attention. Mizuki looked surprised. "Oh, it's you." Naruko raised an eyebrow. "Looks like there's been some kind of misunderstanding here." Sasuke glanced between them, uncertain, while Iruka stepped forward, clearly concerned. Naruko noticed the scroll and pointed toward it. Ashley, could you bring that over here, please? In a blur of graceful movement, Ashley padded over and carefully picked up the scroll, placing it safely at Naruko's feet before sitting proudly beside her. Mizuki blinked in surprise. That was fast. Naruko smiled, calm and confident. No need for arguments. This scroll belongs in safe hands. Iruka sighed in relief, though he still looked a bit shaken. Naruko turned to him kindly. You should get some rest, Iruka-sensei. You've had a long night. Before he could respond, he suddenly found himself standing safely inside the village hospital, completely unharmed but very confused. Back in the clearing, Naruko dusted off her hands and looked at Sasuke. I think it's best if the Hokage hears about this and helps sort everything out. Sasuke nodded quietly, still processing everything that had happened. Naruko then picked up the scroll and handed it back toward the proper place it belonged. No shortcuts. Some things are meant to be learned step by step. Ashley stretched and let out a soft yawn. Naruko smiled at her companion. Come on, Ashley. Let's go home. Ashley gave a happy rumble and leapt lightly into the air, heading off toward their house. Naruko followed with an easy, graceful jump, the two of them disappearing into the peaceful night, leaving the clearing calm and quiet once more. The next morning, Naruko stood in her bedroom, looking at her wardrobe and wondering what she should wear. She wanted to look nice because today was special. She would be meeting her team and her sensei for the very first time. Usually, she wore her favorite outfit without much thought, but today felt different. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. Something comfortable, but also a little stylish, she murmured. Glancing over at her bed, she noticed Ashley, her sleek and graceful panther companion, lounging contentedly. Ashley stretched lazily and gave Naruko a playful look, as if she already approved of whatever choice Naruko would make. Naruko smiled. You always look confident, don't you, Ashley? I guess I should too. After a moment, she chose an outfit that made her feel strong and free, something light and easy to move in, with a few shiny accessories that reminded her to stand tall and be proud of herself. Once she was dressed, Naruko stepped outside, with Ashley walking happily beside her. The morning air felt fresh, and the sunlight made everything seem full of possibility. As she walked toward the academy, she suddenly stopped. Oh no! I forgot something important. Quickly turning around, she hurried back home and picked up her gear, making sure everything was in place. She paused in front of the mirror, checking her reflection one last time. You've got this, she told herself with a determined nod. Then she glanced at the clock and gasped softly. I'm running late. Naruko took a deep breath and looked at Ashley. All right, let's not panic. We'll get there in a flash. Ashley gave a soft, amused sound and sat beside her. Naruko closed her eyes, focused carefully, and in an instant, the two of them disappeared, reappearing moments later near the academy. She opened her eyes and smiled brightly. Right on time. Well, almost. With Ashley by her side, Naruko walked forward with confidence, ready to begin a brand new chapter of her journey. Dear YouTube channel members. That's all for now. Thank you for your continued support. Stay tuned for what's coming next. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.